Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Bruchim Abayim. We're in the middle of the first Rani V'simchi Bas Tzion. Where are we? We are on page Lamed Vav, column 2. Lamed Vav, column 2. On top it says Miketz. Lamed Vav, column 2. We're holding at the third paragraph. Achainu kol haneshama. The paragraph starts, Achainu kol haneshama. Yes. Today we're going to breathe. I mean, every day we should breathe. Every moment, hopefully, we're breathing. But today, we're going to learn about breathing. The truth is that BreathWork has become extremely and excessively popular recently, even though the disciplines of BreathWork have been around literally for hundreds and thousands of years, and in Kabbalah and different works of Kabbalah and Chassidus, there's a lot of discussion about it, more than most people know, because it's not something that's so ingrained in the, let's call it, mainstream Jewish community. Oh, I said hundreds of thousands of years. Oh, okay.
The next thing you'll have a clip.
Okay. I stand corrected. Hundreds of years and really thousands of years. Okay. They say there was a professor who was talking about the future of the world. He was giving this big lecture in Manhattan. Of course, many of the people were Jewish because they always think about these things. And he said that according to his calculations, in 4 billion years, it's obvious that the entire universe will be obliterated completely. So there was an elderly Jew in the back, and he started to have heart palpitations. And he started to fall, and they called Hatzalah to resuscitate him. It was like he was about to have cardiac arrest. So the professor looks and he says, "What are you so worried about?" I said 4 billion years. In 4 billion years, the world will be obliterated. He said, "Oh, I thought you said 4 million. Okay, so people are very worried. The truth is, we say in the davening, Toila Eretz al Blima. The entire earth is suspended al Blima. Blima is Blima, on nothingness. Blima. It's suspended on absolutely nothingness. In other words, the fine-tuning that is required for existence at any moment, and for especially our all of existence, but especially life on our planet, Eretz, it's Blima. It's if statistics would take over, nothing would the possibility of existence is statistically so mind-staggering that it would take an insane mind to believe that it can happen on its own. So I'm saying, when you realize that, you know, it's like Mamanavshach. There's no God, so then the next second, nothing is guaranteed. And if there is, he'll worry about it in 4 billion years too. He's not going to get old in 4 billion years. Thank you for the correction. So it's fascinating that this piece in the Maimer, which is really a Chanukah Maimer, Miketz Maimer, it's a whole discussion from the Alter Rebbe about what breathing really is. So let's get into it. Today's class is graciously dedicated by Gila Klein in loving memory and Le'elu Nishmas Fegaleya Bas Rebaruch HaKoyen. Tehei Nishmas Atzrura B'tzur HaChayim, and may she remain an eternal source of blessing, light, and inspiration to you, the entire family, to all of the Jewish people. And B'karev we should experience, as the Prophet, the Navi says, Ve'ikitzu v'rananu sheichne afar, which is the promise of Tchias HaMesim B'karev. Amen, Ken Yehi Ratzon, and thank you very much for your partnership. Okay. Breathing is one of those things in the world, in life, that is unique because it's both involuntary and voluntary. Meaning, most mechanisms in the body are either voluntary or involuntary. I don't eat on my own. Eating doesn't happen by the body on its own because you have to bring in food. So I have to take consciously food and put it into my body, or take a drink of water, or take a drink of another liquid. Going to the bathroom, usually, in most cases, I mean, obviously there are exceptions, but as we grow up, it's something you do voluntary. And by the way, I think I saw this in one of the books of Rabbi Avigdor Miller, that it's a very interesting thing, because the whole digestive system is involuntary. Once you put in food, that's voluntary. But what happens after that, the body takes over. You can gain schlafen. In fact, most people don't know what the digestive system looks like. They don't have to know. Digestion doesn't start when it goes into your abdomen. Digestion starts the moment it hits your tongue. The saliva in the tongue is the beginning of disintegrating the food so that it can be digested. So digestion happens the moment you insert the food onto your tongue, digestion begins. So the whole process of digestion is completely involuntary. What do I mean involuntary? Not that I don't want it. I want it. I'm very happy about it. But meaning there's no conscious partnership. It happens with a 1 year old, a 1 day old baby, a 1 hour old baby who nursed. And it happens a 1 month old baby, and 1 year old baby, and a 10 year old, and a 90 year old. And they're all digesting, and most of them don't even know what's happening. Digestion was so complicated. Yeah, it would take 100 years of studying and getting a PhD in how to work it wouldn't have the knowledge that the body has the moment it's born. what to do with food. I mean, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, it's incredible. All the learning is to see the chachma, the wisdom in the body. So you would think, what's the last part of digestion? The bathroom, going to the bathroom, because that's when the body says, okay, I have no room for this psilus, right? This part of the food has no benefit for the body. Not even, there's parts of the food the body stores away as fat. Right? There's part of the food that goes into the bloodstream. In that itself, the body needs to know which part of the bloodstream. So it has to dissect the brilliance of the body in nutrition to know the value of every single particle of food and where it belongs. Is it glucose, fat? Is it going to this part? Is it going to this part? Or at some point the body says, this I have no benefit for it. Even in a year, in 2 years, 3 years, as part of your fat reserve, this we don't need. Boom, it's going out. According to the way you see it, that should also be automatic. Everything else is automatic, but you see everything happens automatic besides that point. So you see the mechanism here was created for the dignity of a person. Because if it would have been that case, I could be in the middle of giving a shiur, and you know what would happen, right? And it wouldn't be so, let's put it, batamt, to say the least. Right? Chasin under the chuppah, whatever it is, ubechlal in life, you know, you're sitting with people. So it's interesting. It's interesting. You know, if we were just technical evolutionary machines, right? It's the last step. I don't care what you're interested in. It's time to go to the bathroom. The body says, your dignity is not essential to the story of creation. You're just a functioning machine. You were evolved, and we have to take care of business. And you take care of business, take care of business. Like we have many animals that take care of business, and they don't care, you know, where they are or when they are, you know. It's time to go, daf megain. So this is an interesting thing, that this last step, suddenly the body stops and says, you got to decide this. So we have two types of systems. One, so that we do consciously, we have to decide, but most of them we do unconsciously. For example, the circulatory system. Most people don't know it unless you study it. It's an incredible system. What happens with the blood? It's incredible. How the blood develops, and then what happens with the blood, the circulation of the blood, and the oxygenation of the blood. But it's completely an unconscious system in the sense that nobody even knows what's happening throughout the day and throughout the night. What about breathing? On one hand, the respiratory system is different than all of them. On one hand, it's not conscious, meaning nobody sits and says, okay, now I need to breathe. Whether you say it or you don't say it, the body knows that every moment it needs to inhale oxygen in order to live. The body also knows that it needs to exhale oxygen in order to live. And if it would stop this process, even chas v'shalom for a few minutes, and we're not talking for a few hours, kaput, the person can't live. So this is a constant process from the moment the baby emerges from the womb of the mother, all the way ad zebula basraisa until the last breath, pun intended. The reason we call it the last breath is because it's the last breath. Because after the last breath, there's no life, physical life. So essentially, it's a completely unconscious process. But it's I think it's the only process that can also be conscious. You choose if it should be conscious or unconscious. If you're not going to choose, it's going to be unconscious. You're going to breathe. That's what we do, baby. Everybody breathes. And most people are not aware of it. It just happens. But this is one of the things, unlike the digestive or circulatory system where I'm going to control the circulation of my blood, I'm not. Today you can have an x-ray and see what's happening, but you're not controlling anything. Here you can actually not stop breathing, but stop everything else, and focus on your breath. You could speed it up, you can slow it down. There's so many different methods of breathing. There's breathing through your nose, there's breathing through your mouth. There's how to breathe. There's deep, intense breathing. There's light, smooth breathing. There's relaxed breathing. There's more stressful breathing. It's a process that you could look at, you can see, you could scrutinize, and you can, I don't want to say the word manipulate, but you can be actively involved in the breathing in a very conscious way. Effectuate it, exactly. Very good word.
You cannot control it. You can pause it. You can manipulate it, but you cannot
Right,
stop
you can pause, no. You could stop it for a limited amount of time, but not for significant. You can hold your breath for 30 seconds. Some people can hold their breath for a minute. There are those who can hold their breath for 25 minutes. It's a unique,
What's the name?
It's a group. What's their name? The SEALs, the Navy SEALs. But there's a whole culture. What are they called? They go underwater. Where?
The person that developed the whole.
Yeah. Winhoff was his name. But yeah, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. It's an interesting thing. But even without training, you can hold your breath. And you could do so many different exercises. And today, a lot of people are very involved in breath work. It can even create altered states of consciousness. When it can bring up very, very deep memories, very, very deep experience, and very, very deep emotions. Oh, yeah, what are they called? Bahau. Yeah, Bahau. Yeah, you looked it up? Bahau people, yeah. Yeah. Somebody told me he once went to see them, yeah. Where do they live? It's very interesting, yeah. No. Yeah, but you don't even see most of it. I mean, what goes into my mouth, but once it goes down, it's a whole... Oh, that, yeah. But he went to the Nilos. Pari went to the Nilos. Right, so my point was that last part of going to the bathroom, that we control, at least to a certain degree. I mean, yeah, if a person... No, you can't compare. Oh, that last step, you're saying, going to the bathroom. Yeah, but going to the bathroom, in most people's cases, when they get a little older, they're constantly controlling it. Meaning, with breathing, it's a whole discipline, it's a whole effort. But yeah, you're right. You're saying even if you don't control going to the bathroom, it's going to happen on its own. Exactly. Okay, yeah, you're right. I guess the reason I'm saying only breathing is because a person goes to the bathroom a few times a day, or once a day, or twice a day, or 3 times a day, and here you're talking about literally a system that's moment to moment to moment to moment, from the first moment till the last moment. Very good. That's only out, this is in and out. Now, because it's both conscious and unconscious, and it's the only thing that way, or at least one of the only things, therefore it's a link between the conscious and the unconscious. In other words, most systems are not conscious, so they're unconscious. Other systems are conscious, they're conscious. Because this is both, so therefore, why? It's not a mistake. It's not like, okay, why? Don't do it that way. The answer is because it's a link. It's a link from the conscious to the unconscious. Or to put it in the language of the Maimer, it's a link between just living and functioning and tuning in to the source of life, which is much deeper than the consciousness of a person at any moment. And because of that, breathing, when it's done with presence, with mindfulness, with full awareness of the person, has very, very profound potential and capacity. I spoke yesterday to a Chabad Shliach in Cozumel, Mexico. So he told me that since the war, at least for me, he makes almost a weekly or monthly retreat for 12 soldiers who came back from the war in Gaza or Lebanon and are dealing with PTSD, including victims who were there October 7th and saw things, or soldiers who saw things afterwards, because the atrocities were unfathomable, and they're suffering a lot. And in Israel, PTSD is not fully developed. I mean, it is, but not to the extent that it needs to be. So he brings them to Cozumel, 12 soldiers with healers to help them. So he told me a major component is BreathWork. A major component is BreathWork. It's extremely, extremely helpful. And there's a lot of people now doing it. And it's very powerful. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert. I mean, I don't know about it. I did it a few times. And one time I did it, I started to cry at some point. I just started to sob, and I didn't expect it. I just started to cry. So I realized the power of it. Just started to cry from deep, deep existential things and from childhood memories. There's even states where you can go back in your experience to your fetal position. In other words, how you were literally in the earliest moments of existence. Ad kedei kach. In other words, it's the link between conscious and unconscious. Because in the unconscious, everything still exists, right? The unconscious is lamayla min hazman. It's beyond time. So everything still exists. The moment that you were born is now also. The moment you were conceived is now also. Your pregnancy is now also. No, it's not. It's 50 years ago, 52 years ago, 60 years ago, whatever it is, 40 years ago. That's on one level, of course. On another level, it's still there. Everything is still there. And this is a link to that space. There's also a tremendous amount of awareness that can come out of it. So this Maimed Al Rebbe actually goes very deep into this process.
Say that they use AI and VR headset as the future to recreate.
Wow. Another interesting thing was, I know in my case, I finished crying, and then I started to laugh like crazy. I just started to laugh, and it was so interesting, and I couldn't control it. I was laughing like a meshugana. It was so interesting. It was like laughing. It wasn't like a reason. Nobody made a joke. It was just like a laughter that was just like a release of very intense energy. But it was like literally the zela umazeh of the crying. It was the same energy. Just on one level, like when you tune into a certain place, you can cry endlessly and you can also laugh endlessly, you know? It's like, it's the same nekuda really. It's touching a certain dimension where things don't fit into a box, you know, that you construct. So there's a lot of grief and a lot of pain, and there's also a lot of laughter and a lot of joy.
You clean the car, you find schmutz, you find money.
Yeah, very good. Huh? It is? Really? Wow. No, people have told me that breath work is as powerful as psychedelics and sometimes could be more. I didn't know more, you're saying more, but it's certainly very, very powerful. Huh? Right, but some plants are also natural. You're saying, but it's natural mamish inside the person. Right. That's good. If you're breathing on psychedelics, it's a lot more than psychedelics. Very good. Very good. This is a good litzonis. That's an intelligent litzonis. Huh? Saying when you combine the two, then it's much better. Zev is a guide. Okay, so let's see now inside. Now, like everything, it's always important to say, everything in the world could be an avodah zarah. Everything. Even the highest levels of awareness. When self-awareness becomes the tachlis, then medicine, breath work, psychedelics, everything, all healing, therapy, exercise, everything, even good things that are really, really good and helpful and a person needs it. If it doesn't bring you closer to the essence and truth of reality, it becomes bedakos, an inyan of avodah zarah. Bedakos mean in an edel way, in a subtle way. Why? Because it becomes a distraction of life rather than a connection with life. Connection with life is always through bittul, through alignment, through going into the flow of the divine core. Whenever it's detached from that and it becomes its own tachlis, it seems very, very spiritual and enthralling and liberating, but a person gets stuck. Yeah, and sometimes the stuckness after that is much more lethal, because it's stuckness with a lot of sophistication and a lot of awareness and a lot of spirituality and a lot of arrogance. Because I'm healthier than the whole world. Everybody is sick and crazy, and I'm the only normal guy in this place. Everybody is trauma, and I'm liberated from all my trauma. And you look at everybody, they're like, their intelligence is the level of a cockroach, versus this person who has done work for, 29 years or 39 years or 10 years, whatever it is, and he knows everything about what happened in the womb. And L'Payal Mamish, can't get his life together. And there's a reason for it. Because whenever something is not a tool, it's a tachlis, meaning it replaces Hashem, that's called avodah zarah. There's nothing that replaces Hashem. And therefore there's nothing that replaces avodas Hashem. Nothing. And that's right away, there's a distinction right away. Yeah. The reason I'm saying this is, there's people in our community, they hear the word breath work. Oh, a new avodah zarah. Rabbi, why? First was trauma. Now there's a new avodah zarah. It's called breath work. And they don't know how to be mafchin bin kla ilan l'tchelis. The Gemara says that these people, they would take kla ilan. Kla ilan is indigo, an indigo plant, and it looks like tchelis. And they would make it as tchelis because it was much cheaper. Right? So it was tchelis. Everybody needed tchelis for their tzitzis. So they used kla ilan. And it was a very, very deceptive and efficient way to make a lot of money. It was a very good way. So there was a lot of corruption in the tchelis production. Just like there's different areas of religion today where there could be some issues. So this was, by then, it was kla ilan and tchelis was a big thing. The Gemara says, I'm the one who, God says, I know the difference between kla ilan and tchelis. I made them both. I know the difference. If you're not mafchin, they both look blue. They both look like heaven. They both look like the ocean. It's interesting, the Gemara always brings this dugma, because it's a very deep dugma. Because tchelis, the Gemara says in Saita, that tchelis is daima liyam. It looks like the color of the ocean, a beautiful sunny day. You look at the water, that bluish turquoise color, which is daima l'rakia, which is similar to a beautiful heaven, which is daima l'kiseh hakavod. And kla ilan uses all of these spiritual colors, but it's fake. It's not chelis. So that's why it's a very deep example, because when you're looking at this color, are you getting closer to heaven, or it's a counterfeit for heaven? The moment it takes away a person from Hashem and avodas Hashem, it means it's a replacement for God. If it's a replacement for God, ultimately it's another form of klippa. If it's another form of klippa, it's going to detach the person from themselves, from their true source. And therefore, what it's going to do is it may give them a lot of awareness, and they may be very sophisticated. They may be ahead of the game in the sense that they know many variables and they understand a lot of patterns, but essentially, they're still stuck. They're stuck in a different form of ego. They're stuck in a shell, in a husk. Whenever you speak in a maimer, in Chassidus, about anything, could be breathwork, anything, healing, self-awareness, it's always like we learned in the Maimer of the Brachas, if you remember, V'yachid levavenu. Mitzias is always a hachana for bittul. Right? Mitzias is a hachana for bittul. Mitzias is, Yosef and Yehuda, yeah. In Torah Or Vayigash, Yosef and Yehuda. Yosef is hachana for Malchus Beis David. Always. The brothers saw Yosef as a threat. They didn't understand that Yosef was the foundation. Because self-awareness is the foundation for transcendence. Self-awareness is the foundation for divine awareness. If divine awareness comes without self-awareness, self-awareness could be spiritual bypassing, could be repression, it could be suppression. And the truth is, it's a very delicate balance. Because a lot of people who start learning Chassidus, it's because they're struggling. If it's working for them, it's working for them. They're struggling emotionally. So they think it's going to be another form of healing. It's like another therapist. Maybe cheaper, maybe, right? But essentially, if I don't graduate my old paradigms and I'm still looking, for the savior that's going to make me feel good, and I'm not ready to do that work of true integration, so it's another crutch. So that's always the distinction. Yeah, that you never worship the object or the product. It's always a channel. It's a tool. And when it becomes a tool, then it's a liberating experience. And then everything is part of that process. Everything can be part of that process. So that's just a very important, not disclaimer, but an introduction to all these concepts constantly, whenever we learn about them. So the focus here is on the pasuk, the last pasuk in Tehillim, which we say every day in davening. Kol haneshama tahalleluya, hallelujah. Literally it means, every soul shall praise Yud-Kei, hallelujah, praise Yud-Kei. The Alter Rebbe said, l'chayre the word should be teshabeach. Kol haneshama teshabeach Yud-Kei. So he says, no. Hallel doesn't only mean praise, it also means light. Behiloi neiroi aureish ershi. When the light is bright and shines on my head. It's a pasuk in Eov. Or Yohel Oir, it's another pasuk. The light glows. In English, there's the word halo, which comes from that word. Halo is from Yohel, Behiloi. So the word Tahalal is the neshama accesses light. Tahalal, she illuminates, she radiates. But what does it say? Tahalal Yudke, not Tahalal Hashem, which is Yudke Vavke, only the two letters Yudke. In Tanakh, whenever it says Yudke, not Yudke Vavke, it's very, very precise. Why only half of Hashem's name is used? Usually it's Yudke Vavke. That's Hashem's name. Or sometimes a different name is used. Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, Adnor, Alikim. Whenever you use the name Yudke, which is one of the names, but it's only half of the Yudke Vavke, it's significant. So Kol HaNeshama Tahalal Yudke Elaluk. So the Rebbe went into a whole explanation of Ani Hashem Lo Shanisi, of how the world is created, which we discussed in the last two classes. And he spoke about the process of the universe being a word. Whenever it's a word comes from somewhere. So the universe could be experienced on many different layers, as a word and as a thought and as an emotion and as an idea and as a subconscious experience. And therefore in the deepest frequency of reality, it's completely divine and infinite, just as it was pre-creation. On that level, everything is as perfect as is. Even though the light is manifested and filtered and condensed to the point where it comes out as a concretized object, to the point that I could see it and I could even plagiarize the world and steal it from the speaker and claim it as my own, which is what words mean, because words you can plagiarize. We explained this all at length, and that's the last hey of Hashem's name. But to get to the last hey, you need Kadosh, 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 in order to get to Hashem, to become Tzvais. Tzvais is Oishu B'Tzavar Shaloi. So Kadosh, 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 to get from Yud, to get to Yud, and then from Yud to Hey, and from Hey to Vav, and then till the last hey. The last hey, the Gemara says, Behei Nivra Elam Haza. Because that's the Dibur that creates our world. Because Dibur leaves you, as I explained in last class, and the class before. The first letter is Yud. What did he say Yud is? Yud represents a seminal point which has no dimensions. We have a line which represents one dimension. You have Nekuda in old mathematics, they called it Nekuda, Kav, and Shetach. Nekuda is a seminal point, Kav is a line, and Shetach is a, what's it called, a plane? A square with this Oirech and Reichev, two dimensions, there's both length and breadth. And then you have a cube, I guess it's called a Shetach, 3 dimensions. Nekuda represents a seminal point, which is the closest we can get in our language and mathematics and pictures to something that has no dimensions. That's what the Yud is. So Yud represents that the Oir Ein Sof condenses itself into a nekuda, which is yud, which is a seminal point, which means it lacks all of the dimensions of Ein Sof, so to speak, which is dimensionless, of course, but it lacks all of the properties, if we could use that, of infinity, because without that there could not be the consciousness of a world, even the highest level of a world. And that's what the Gemara says in Menachos, biyud nivra olam haba, that even olam haba, which olam haba is a place of revelation, and the neshamas bask and radiate, they bask in the radiance of the Shekhinah. It's the radiance of the Shekhinah. Lahanchil oy havai yesh. So the Rebbe says it's a yesh. Lahanchil oy havai yesh. Because since the neshama is a nivra, so ultimately it could comprehend in a finite way. So therefore the ayin, which is no thing, has to become something in order for the neshama to bask in the radiance of the Shekhinah. And that's why it's radiance. It's a ziv. It's like the ray of the sun. And that can only happen because of yud. It got condensed into a yud. So from the yud can be created the first hay, which is machshava. The last hay is dibur, words. The first hay is thought. The yud is pre that. In order there could be the hay machshava, which is olam haba. The experience of olam haba can only come be yud nivra olam haba, which is the first hay. Behay, the last hay, nivra olam haza, olam haza. Olam haza, product of the last hay. So after the yud comes the hay, and then comes the vav, which represents hamshacha, the flow down, like a vav is a flow downward. And from there you can come from the first hay, which is machshava, to the second hay, which is dibur. That's the flow downward from thought to speech, from an internal experience to an externalized experience. The way divine infinity is externalized from our perspective in a universe that I can call this a tissue box and call this a table and call me a person and call this a coffee, that's the product of dibur. Like we explained, Kol ha'omer davar b'shem omer mevi gula l'olam. Baruch shamar v'yolam. And that's why we say, Ata gibur l'olam Hashem, mechalkel chayim b'chesed. You remember his title, mechalkel? What's mechalkel chayim b'chesed? Mechalkel is keli b'toich keli. The light needs to come into a vessel, which means containment right away. A vessel is containment structure, but that's not enough. The keli needs to go into another keli. The structure itself needs to then be condensed in another keli, mechalkel, and only then can there be chayim. Like we said, you need machshav and you need dibur. And this is all after the yud. In other words, even the highest level of thought, which means olam haba, which is the ultimate spiritual experience. Olam haba itself has infinite levels. But generally, olam haba is the ultimate spiritual because there's no facades. Olam haba we call olam ha'emes, which is olam ha'emes, the world of truth. It doesn't only mean there's no politics. It's honest. Of course, it's honest, but it means much more than that. It means that all the veils and the facades that eclipse reality are gone. So it's the world of ultimate truth. It still could only follow the yud, which means complete suspension and concealment and condensing and filtering and restrictiveness, which is what tzimtzum is, of the light of the Ein Sof. Because the light of Ein Sof was fully manifest and present, everything is just infinite. And that's true. Everything is infinite. Because even after the yud, it's not like God becomes the yud and there's nothing else. The yud is just a process. So the ray of the sun doesn't reshape the sun. Just a way that it's manifested. Right? And that's one of the big nekudas in all the Maimarim. That whenever we speak about tzimtzum and more tzimtzum and more tzimtzum, it's only a one-way process. It's not a process from his perspective, a process from our perspective. In other words, after the Eid itself goes into a yud, it's not like it becomes the yud. And that's what he says, the difference between people and Hashem. If I go into a thought, that thought or that knowledge that you're teaching me comes from an external place, so it defines me. If I'm now involved in this thought or this awareness, this is where I am. You could take me away to something else, but I'm here. When you talk about the divine becoming Yud, it's not like so now he's now Yud. It's an aspect of how it's manifested, so it can be perceived that way. But Ani Hashem Lo Shanisi, the Yud is still subsumed in the full Ein Sof. So at every moment there's a duality in experience. There's experiencing the world as perfect as it can be, pure infinity. Ani Hashem Lo Shanisi, Atu Achel Nivra Elam, Atu Misha Nivra Elam. And there's experiencing the world from the perspective of where I am right now with the glasses that I have right now. And both are not a mistake. In fact, both are necessary in order to experience what's called Dira B'Tachdoinim. Infinite experience, infinite consciousness having a finite experience. I hope you understood this last point I made, because it's as fundamental as it gets. And tuning in to both of these frequencies, even though the first one is not really called a frequency, it's the transcendence of all frequencies, but tuning into that is as essential as tuning into the reality that I'm perceiving right now. But tuning into that reality requires complete surrender, because it's not something you can capture with your intelligence. Ani Hashem lo yishanisi is pre-logic. So if I'm going to try to capture it through logic, I'm stuck in a pattern, in a very vicious cycle of trying to manipulate existence with instruments of existence to touch that which is beyond existence. You understand? You don't use instruments of existence to touch that which is beyond existence. Huh? Well said. Thank you. So what do you touch? You touch that in you which is which is beyond existence. And that's what bittul is. That's what surrender is. And it's a very, very blissful place, because there's no need to hold on to anything. But there was a yud. What we say there was a yud, it means there's an aspect of Ein Sof that lended itself to be emanated in an experience called yud, which then leads to hey, which then leads to vav, which is kaddish, 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 and there's still the third kaddish in order to get to hey. Because even the vav relative to the hey couldn't be experienced. There had to be a whole other tzimtzum. Even the vav is completely kaddish relative to the hey. Kaddish means completely infinite and transcendent. And then the Alter Rebbe said, that schar mitzvah, the schar of the mitzvah is the mitzvah. So the mitzvah creates the reward. Doesn't mean schar mitzvah doesn't only mean the reward of a mitzvah is that you'll get to do other mitzvahs. That's also true. But it means the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah. Meaning, the greatest reward you can give somebody for the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. Nothing will ever be greater than the mitzvah. Yeah. An example of that would be, what's the greatest reward a person has for an amazing relationship? What's the reward? An amazing relationship. I'll give you a can of Coke if you have a good marriage. Okay. I mean, probably she won't give you a can of Coke if you have a good marriage. She'll give you cucumbers. But the greatest reward for the great relationship is, right? What's the greatest reward to have a good relationship with your children? Cotton candy? Well, you're going to go to Six Flags? You're going to get money? The greatest reward is that itself. Schar mitzvah, when it says in Pirkei Avos, it means there's a lot of reward, but there's not going to be anything greater than the mitzvah itself. Mitzvah meloshen tzavsa v'chibah. The Gemara says in Brachas, tzavsa from the word Teves, tzavsa, l'tzava is loza, it's connection, the connection. But here the Balatanya says something even deeper. Schar mitzvah, the schar of the mitzvah is also created by the mitzvah. Olam haba is not a separate thing. Olam haba is created by the mitzvah. Olam haba is the revelation of the bliss in the mitzvah. It's you see what the mitzvah is. That's it. Vayanicheyu began Eden la'avda l'shamra, says the Medrash, la'avda is ramach mitzvah saseh, l'shamra is shasam mitzvah loisaseh. He put Adam in Gan Eden to toil it and to protect it. How do you toil Gan Eden? How do you garden Gan Eden? A gardener goes to the garden, mows the lawn, right? Plows the earth and plants. And takes care of the weeds. The avda or l'shamra. L'avda means to weed it, to work it. L'shamra is to protect it. So the Medrash says, l'avda is ramach mitzvah saseh, l'shamra shasam mitzvah loisaseh. Because that's how you make Gan Eden. You protect Gan Eden and you make it happen. So that's schar mitzvah. So therefore, the Gan Eden is created by the person. The Olam haba is created by the neshama. Schar mitzvah. It's just the schar of the mitzvah that was created by the mitzvah itself. This is the pshat. Koil haneshama tahalel, ya hallelujah. What's ya again? Yud K. I should say Yud Ka. Yud is Olam haba, the tzimtzum that creates Olam haba. Hey is Olam haba itself, which is created by the Yud. Those the first two letters of Hashem's name. You'll have Vav and Hey, but the first two letters is the Yud and the Hey. As the Gemara says in Maseches Menachos, be Yud nivra Olam haba, be Hey nivra Olam haza. Ki beka Hashem tzurei lamim. So Koil haneshama, it's the neshama tahalel. Again, Tahalal doesn't only mean praise, but Tahalal means, as the pasuk says in Iyov, radiates light. So she is the one who radiates the light of Yud and Hey. She accesses from the infinite source the Yud, which is the condensing of all the light, which can create the Hey, which is Lahanchil Oyhavai, Yesh. Right, as the Mishnah says, that every tzaddik is going to get Shai Oilamus, 310 words, the Mishnah at the end of Uktzin. It's the Mamish, the end of the whole Mishnayos. Lahanchil Oyhavai Yesh. But the word yesh is not only 310. The word yesh literally means it's a mitzias. It's yesh. Because it became a yud, which makes the hay. So koil neshama, it's the neshama that's tahalal yud kei, that radiates the flow of the infinity into the yud, which is tzimtzum, which can become the first hey lo, which is elam haba, and that every neshama does it because schar mitzvah through the mitzvah of the neshama. That was the nekudah. Now we understand, but the question is, what's neshama? What does neshama mean? So here we come into the world of the breath. It says in Chazal, it says in Zoyar, and it says in Medrash, the word neshama comes from the word neshima. Vayipach ba'apav, nishmas chaya. Nishmas chaya means the breath of life. When you want to say in Lashon Kodesh, breath, it's called neshima. It says in Medrash Tehillim, kol neshama tahalal yudke, al kol, what's that kol neshama? Every soul. So he says it means something else, not every soul, every breath. It's a beautiful Medrash. Al kol neshima uneshima, tahalal yudke. Don't take for granted even one breath. Don't take it for granted. Kol neshama means not only every soul, like everyone, that too, but kol neshama means every person, but every breath. Stop. Now it's not very practical every breath to start saying the whole Hallel. And the Gemara also says that kol ha'omer Hallel b'chol yom. You're not supposed to say Hallel every day. But the point is not saying Hallel. The point is not to take for granted the process of breathing. It's one of the unconscious miracles. So kol neshima neshima. They tell a story. I once saw a story that there was a Jew. He was older. He was already 90, and he had problems breathing. They took him to the hospital, and they put him on. There was a problem with oxygen, so they put him on a ventilator, and he was there for like 3 days. He was there for 72 hours, and then they got him back regular rhythm. They liberated. They gave him a bill. He didn't have insurance. They gave him a bill. It was like $25,000. So he started to cry. So the doctor said, "Don't worry, we'll make a payment plan. Over the years, you don't have to pay up right away. You'll pay a little every month. We'll make a deal." He says, "No, I'm a man of means. I could pay. It's not why I'm crying." So he says, "So why are you crying?" I was thinking for 72 hours, it was $25,000 I owe you. I've been breathing for 90 years. So how much money do I owe God? And he didn't charge a penny. For 72 hours of giving me breath, you want 25 grand. So what do I owe for 90 years? That's why I'm crying. It made an awareness for him. Kol neshama. Now we go to a deeper step here. Kol neshima neshima. Tahalal kol, yeah. Yudke, yeah. Why are you saying Yudke?
Because there's also kol neshama, kol neshima neshima tahalal kol is also, you know.
That's what the Gemara is.
Yeah, the Medrash says, Al kol neshima, on every breath, tahalal Yudke. The diuk is kol neshama. So he says here, $225 million. A bargain, yeah. How much would you pay for your breath? How much would you pay for your breath, right? Very good. Huh? There's no payment plan. Yeah, what's the price? What's the price of breath? So now, when we explained that Yud-Kei refers to Olam Haba, and it comes from the neshama, because schar mitzvah, what's kol neshama? He says kol neshama means every soul. It means every breath, but he says it means something else. Kol neshama means the whole breath. Kol neshama means the whole neshima. Breath has different parts to it. Kol neshama means not only kol neshima, every breath, it means the whole breath. The entire gamut, the entire spectrum of the breath. Because breath has different parts. And you could cut, you can amputate. So you need the kol neshama. Zog the Alter Rebbe, achaynu kol neshama daika. Stavke kol neshama. Ki neshama miloshen neshima. The word neshama comes to the word neshima, sheba adam in a person, sheibchinis ratzei v'shayv. The breath operates in a rhythm called ratzei v'shayv. Ratzei v'shayv is an expression of the Navi Yecheskel. It says in Yecheskel, v'hachayos ratzei v'shayv. All the chayos, which means the angelic beings, the holy animals, referring to the angels, are in a state of ratzei and in a state of shayv. Ratzei, as we learned in previous Maimer, in Bereshis, ratzei comes from the word ratzain and from the word ratz, which is both the same etymology. Ratz means running. Ratzain means desire, craving. Every desire is a form of racing towards something, aspiring, pining. Shuv is from the word lashuv, to return. It's the opposite. You're running, you're desiring, you're craving, you're yearning, and then you retreat. There's tension and there's resolution. Tension is you're discontent with the status quo. That's what Ratz is. Asura nova eres hamara agadol azezak rashi, asura mikan liskarav l'sham. When you see the burning bush, Moshe says, I want to go away from here, I want to go there. Hashem says, Al tikrav halayim. B'chol hamakim, kol hamakim, Al tikrav halayim shal nalechem al ragachem, ki hamakim ashata oimad alav admas kaideshu. Can you recognize that the place on which you're standing is sacred? And it's a very deep process. Because in life, I always want to go there. I want to go away from here, and I want to go there because the burning bush is there, it's not here. And then the voice says, Al tikrav halayim. Can you discover that the place upon which you're standing is sacred? The place on which you're standing. You don't have to go away from the makom ashat ha'omed alav. And that's hard because I always feel if I go away from this place and I go there, over there I'm going to catch the angels. Over there I'm going to find bliss. I'm going to find Gan Eden. My life. Whoa. And then the problem is you're going to run to something else also in 10 minutes. Because until you don't find that the place on which you're standing is holy, you could run to the whole world. You're not going to find anything. Somebody once asked me at an interview if there's one person in history I could meet, who I would like to meet. So I said myself. How long ago? Not long ago, I don't remember. And I said, I'll tell you why. If you don't find yourself, you could meet everybody. You're not going to meet them. You're just going to look at them through a mirror. It's like looking at somebody with a mirror. In other words, you're using them. Only when you meet yourself, and then you'll be able to meet everybody. When you meet yourself, you'll be able to meet everybody. Until hamakom ashat ha'omed alav admas kaideshu, can you realize the place where you're standing, that's where everything is happening. That's where there's kedusha. That's the awareness of shuv. But the shuv comes after the ratzei. And then after the shuv, there's a deeper ratzei. And that's the cycle we learned in the Maimah of Bereshis. Kasher Shamayim HaKadosh. Remember, heaven and earth, heaven and earth, heaven and earth. And the second parsha of Krishma, when you stop the ratzei, there's no rain that comes from the heaven. When there's no ratzei, there's no shayv. So it's always a process. Breathing, as we learned also over there, is the manifestation of ratzei and shayv. And that's why breathing has two components, inhaling and exhaling. Physiologically, we inhale oxygen. That oxygen doesn't belong to us. Nobody owns oxygen. I don't know if there's companies yet that were created to own oxygen. The way God made it is that this is something that our companies can't yet manipulate. Even the great capitalistic enterprises and even the great communist enterprises. Even Stalin, he owned everything. He owned your brain, he owned your heart, he owned your soul, he owned your God. But even oxygen he didn't know how to own. I mean, he can kill you, but the oxygen is something free. Rabbeinu Bechaya writes in Chayvus HaLevavos, a hafla de kavart. He says the way Hashem made the world is that things that are essential to life, the more essential, the cheaper they are. So he says, for example, a home, a person needs shelter, but it's expensive. But it's not as essential, for example, as clothes. Clothes are also expensive, but not as expensive as a home. Clothes are essential, but it's not as essential as food. A person without clothes can still survive. Food is expensive, but it's not like clothes and it's not like a home. Water, you need more than food. It can cost money, but it's much more accessible, and there's places you can get it for free. He says, oxygen, You need more than anything because you need it every moment and it's completely free. So the fact that it's free is because it's so essential that you can't live without it. Hashem says, for this, there's not a penny. You don't pay a penny. So when we inhale God's oxygen, right, without that we can't live. So we have to understand this, because when a person says, where do I begin, where do I end? I'm here and I'm till here. That's a very limited perspective. Is this really where I end? Without oxygen, I can't live. So actually, there's a part of me that's coming from outside of me that's also part of me. And there's part of you, so, where do we really begin and where do we really end? Like, where does my identity begin and end? On one level, it's right here. I'm sitting in a chair and that's it. But on another level, we're all using the same oxygen. We're all breathing the same oxygen. So it's God's oxygen, the Creator's oxygen, that we breathe in, and it's essential. As we breathe it in through our nose, through our mouth, it's of course sent down through the lungs. And this is the source of life. Not just because we need the breath and the oxygen, which we do. The brain and every cell in the body must have oxygen. But the most important thing is the blood needs oxygen. And the blood, hadam hu nefesh. The blood travels. And when it's oxygenated, it can give its nutrients and bring that oxygen to every cell in the entire body. This is the miracle of the mahalach hadam, of the circulatory system. And the blood literally flows and deposits the oxygen in every single cell of the 70 trillion cells, not million and not billion, 70 trillion cells of the body. And it knows which nutrients. Imagine a mailman that every hour has to stop at 70 billion locations and everybody gets a different letter. Everybody gets a different letter and the mailman got to come right back and then go right back. And this is happening for 120 years and nobody even knows. And then they say it's random. The mailman has to give a different letter, 70 trillion houses. And everybody needs something else. And the mailman doesn't even get upset. He's in a good mood most of the time. And then he comes back, but the mailman also picks up all the garbage. He doesn't only give the mail. This mailman gives you what you need and then takes the garbage and brings it back to the garbage dump. It's called carbon dioxide, and that's the exhale. So it inhales the oxygen, spits out all the garbage, the carbon dioxide. And that happens in the lungs where there's an exchange. I told you we have like 300 million ear sacs. And that's where the ear meets the blood. It gives it the new oxygen, it takes the carbon dioxide, and it throws it out. Nobody even knows this is happening. And without this process, kaput. You can call the Chevra Kadisha. So there's a cycle, it doesn't stop. What's the significance of this? You see, that's how the Rebbe Shalom created the body. But every nekuda mipsari echze leka, it says in Iyov. Every nekuda in biology and in medicine and in physiology is echze leka. It's a reflection of the entire cosmic experience and all of Avodas Hashem. It says olam katan zeha adam. Novus the Reb Nosson. Right? The person is a miniature universe. So what's happening in the person is happening on the cosmos. In the cosmos. By the way, Stam, a very interesting thing is, actually, the Lubavitch Rebbe said this once at a Fabrengen in 1986. But recently I saw that a scientist was writing about this. It's a fascinating thing. When they found the atom, when they started to see the functions of how the atom works, so the critical component is that you have the nucleus of the atom, and then you have the electron that evolves and rotates with crazy speed around the nucleus of the atom, but most of the atom is empty space. And what they noticed, and the atom is of course the tiniest component of all matter is built from atoms, right? Even the point of a needle has not billions and not trillions and not sextillions, it has crazy amounts of atoms. I mean, it's unbelievable. The tiniest point of matter has numbers of atoms that we can't even imagine, right? A flake of snow, a grain of sand, it's just incredible how many atoms it is, and every one is working in perfect synchronization of the electron revolving around the nucleus to be able to keep it together, because if anybody decides to quit hakafis, it's every, Charav Alma, we win over the universe. So it's mamish, and the speed, it's not, it's a crazy thing. It's not like a slow hakafis, like people dance hakafis, it looks like they're about to die. It's salabadik hakafis, the speed is crazy. So he said a very interesting thing. When you look at that, and then you look on outer space, the systems of the planets, it's exactly the same Nakuda. You have the star, and you have the planets. The same, what happens down here, what happens in the microcosm, is literally the same thing that happens in the macrocosm. That the whole system of the Chalal HaShamayim of outer space, with all the Kechavim and all the Galgalim, all the stars and all the planets, you have a Merkaz, you have the center, and you have revolving, that which revolves around it. It's literally a mirror. The big universe is mirrored in literally every single atom, which shows the Achdus of the Bria. So when something is happening in our own breath, it's not just our own breath. It's a reflection of the entire experience. And that's what he's going to explain here. What is this experience? It's called Ratzei V'Shoif. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. Ratzei Shoif. Ratzei Shoif. And he starts explaining. Ki haneshama hi k'may shekasov eshaim v'ashuf yachat. Eshaim v'ashuf yachat is actually the process of breathing. Eshaim comes from the word neshima, which is actually exhaling. Eshaif means is eshaif. P for arti ve'eshafa. Eshaif is you bring in the ear. So the Navi describes here the concept of eshaim v'ashuf yachad. It works together. Everything works together. I just want to look up where this pasuk is. They have in the back Mar Mekaimus.
So first he says exhaling.
Yeah, it's interesting. He says first exhaling. Yeshaya Perik Mem Beis pasuk Yudalit. Eshaim v'ashuf. So eshaim is the neshima. V'eshaif, together with that, I have to bring back the ear. Sheshoyif hahevel, you absorb your shoyif, you take in the hevel, the oxygen. V'nichnis, it goes in and then v'yotz. V'alshem ze nikru neshama, and that's why our soul is called soul. She mekayr kol haneshimis uklalusam. Why is the neshama called neshama? So we breathe. We also have a blood circulation. We also digest. We also have a urinary. I mean, we have so many. There's a lot of systems of biology, at least 9. Why are you called neshama? The answer is she mekayr kol haneshimis uklalusam, because the neshama is the source of all the breaths. All the breaths throughout your life, uklalusan, and their collective experience is all in neshama. So when you say the word neshama, what you're describing is that one breath, the source of all the breathing. Neshama, from the word neshima, but it's not one breath, but neshama is the source of all the breathing. And the way you can, the klolus, the central nervous system of the entire breathing experience is neshama. What is the nekuda of the breathing experience? That's what neshama is. And what is that nekuda? For this reason, you also see something else. Halev doifek tamid. The heart, the only 2 processes in the body where you have this constant rhythm of in and out, in and out, in and out, is in the respiratory system and in the circulatory system. The breath and the blood. The lev is doifek tamid. We call it the heartbeat. And you could feel the pulse, where you feel the pulse. And the doctor or the one who knows right away knows if there's something off with the heartbeat, if it's dysregulated or regulated. It's the same nekuda, ratzei v'shoif. Why is there a heartbeat? And the answer is because of the electrical currents that are communicated. That's another crazy miracle of biology. Every single moment, the heart contracts. As the heart contracts, what happens? The blood is released from the left ventricle in the heart. The Tachtas Laban on the 4 Shlem, the Leitach of the hearts. Leah, Razel ben Leah Pero. The left ventricle it contracts. So if it contracts, the blood is forced. It's sent away. Vayishlach, leave, and it goes to the whole body. But a moment later, what happens? The heart contracts and the heart expands because the blood comes back for a new cycle. So that's the whole Mahalach Hadam. As we said, the blood is sent out, but it's the mailman. It's making its return. So as it goes, it returns. So the heart opens up, and then the heart contracts again. So when the heart contracts, there's no place for the blood. It sends it out. It opens up. It absorbs the blood, cleans it out. A whole new system. And this happens constantly. The moment the heartbeat, chas v'sholem, stops, that's an emergency. It's like the oxygen stop. And the 2 are connected because blood must be oxygenated. So the inhale and the exhale is what allows the circulation of the blood to be able to function the way it's supposed to be. That combination is the miracle of life. So the Rebbe explains, dam is nefesh, breath is neshima. That combination, that's what he says. It releases the blood, and again, it absorbs the blood. All other limbs are quiet. They don't bother you. They are what they are. They get their mail, they're happy. They remain what they are. They don't expand, contract, in, out. They don't do that. Only these two parts. And we say hadamu anefesh, because the ruach hachayis, the spirit of life of the soul, is manifested in the blood. So just like in breath, neshiba, you have this constant rhythm, so it's expressed also in the doifek halev, in the heartbeat of the soul, which is hadamu anefesh, which captures the ruach. And also scientifically, the blood must have oxygen, and only then can the blood actually deliver the life force that it does, because it needs to be oxygenated. So this has these two concepts. One is ratzei, one is shaif. Which is ratzei, which is shaif? So let's think about it, right? What would you say? Inhaling and exhaling. Which is ratzei, which is shaif? What would you say? Exhaling is what? Very good. Exhaling is ratzei, and inhaling is shuv. Now, which one is more relaxing? Anyone who does breath work here, which one is more relaxing? When you exhale, right? So isn't that interesting? That ratzei is more relaxing than shuv. It's counterintuitive, right? You go, how long can you do that for? You need that in order to go, no, don't stop. Right. The exhaling is like the coming back to yourself. Coming back to yourself is shuv. So that's the interesting thing, that the soul is more relaxed in ratzei than it is in shaif. The soul is more relaxed in ratzei than it is in shaif. Because ratzei is actually the surrender of the soul back to the source. What's ratzei? Don't hold your breath. Shav looks like, what shav? Shav is owning life. It's holding your breath. It's coming back. It's taking in the air. In other words, the chayis is coming into me. What's the greatest mistake you can do is not release it. What's the worst thing you can do with your breath? Hold on to it. Think you own it. It's death. And that's exactly the tragedy of shav without ratzei. The moment you start owning life, you think you have to control life, you have to hold on to life, and you're not ready to release everything and surrender, it's a death sentence, and it's torturous. And that's probably the greatest challenge of man from the moment he ate from the first fruit. The snake told him, own it. It's a beautiful fruit. It's yours. That's what all klippa is. Back to plagiarizing. It's your speech. Plagiarize it. It feels good. It's oxygen. Don't give it up. You got to be a shaita. Somebody gives you $1 million. You right away give it away. You don't do that. Hold on to it. Yeah. I grew up with Russian parents. The joke was always the Russians stuffed their pillowcases with cash, because you never knew when Stalin was going to come to take everything. The mattresses. So they always had cash. In America, 50 years later, they were here 50 years. In their pillowcases, you could find $300,000 in cash in case there's a communist coup over here, which we had almost coming. Coup. Right? What is it? Somebody, you just got, the Ma'aseh with Chelem. In Chelem, they wanted to do Kiddush Levana. There was no moon. So they put out a guard to stand all night and wait for the moon. And they told him, you should have a barrel of water which will reflect the moon. The moment you see the moon in the water, you put a lid on the barrel and you keep the moon intact. You protect it. And that's what he did. He stayed all night. 2:00 in the morning, the moon came out. It was reflected in this beautiful big barrel of water. He took a lid. He covered the barrel. The next night, they called the whole Chelem. They're going to do a public Kiddush Levana. Mit Shiddes, mit Tishbachis, und Zmiddes, mit Tanzen, mit Zayn Lebedik. They brought an orchestra. And they opened the barrel. V'hayeled einenu, halavane einena. The moon is gone. So they started to ask who stole the moon. And it's known that Ad Hayom and Chelim, they're searching for the Ganev of the moon.
All they have to do is replace the button. Was a hammer to make a picture.
But what's so funny about Chelim is what what we do with our lives. We think we own the moon because it was reflected. A reflection of the moon is not the moon. Right? The moment I control things, the moment I think it's mine, it's a death sentence. You know why? Because you just detached yourself from the source. The moon itself is a reflection. Very good. The moon knows it. But in Chelim they didn't know it. Now let's think about it in terms of breath. Think, you just got oxygen. You need oxygen for life. Shouldn't you hold on to it? The answer is no.
Let it go.
Let it go. You're crazy. It's life. That's exactly why you let it go. For it to remain life and not become death, you got to let it go. You got to let it go back to the source. If not, you're going to disconnect your breath from the source. It's going to become carbon dioxide and it's going to kill you, chas v'shalom. Your life will become a death sentence. It'll become a trap. Now you understand what this means emotionally, psychologically. The whole system of life is this. We hold on. We don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. You know, sometimes when people are stressed, they hold their breath. When they exhale, they hold their breath. They say, no, breathe, 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 breathe. Let it go, let it go. Be part of the rhythm. Instinctively, I don't want to be part of the rhythm. It's called survival. I want to own it. It's mine. It's my oxygen. It's in my body. I'm not giving it up for anybody. Paradoxically, that makes that there's no me anymore because I just detached. That's what Ratzoi means. Ratzoi is not, people think, you know, it's giving everything away. It's realigning with the source. And that means giving everything away, of course. In simple English, it's called the frequency of surrender, which always comes with the frequency of trust. Because you can't surrender if you don't trust. You got to be crazy to surrender. That's why people hold their breath, right? You see it instinctively. The amygdala says there's danger. Hold your breath. You hold your breath because we don't know when the next breath is coming. If you don't know if the next breath is coming, you got to be crazy to let it go. And that's how we're living. I don't know what the next breath is going to be. In other words, breathing is really very vulnerable. It's trusting that the universe has another breath waiting for you. Well, why do we do that? Because we trust it. Because it didn't fail us. Baruch Hashem, till today, it didn't fail us. But that's really the secret of all life. The secret of all life is the universe has another breath waiting for you. If you can internalize this and live with this, it's a game changer. I'm not talking intellectually. I always tell you, this is not intellectual. This is breathing. Breathing. You got to breathe into this. The universe has another breath waiting for you. Let it go. Let it go. No, I'm not going to let it go. I'm not going to let it go. Why? Because if I grew up or I developed these survival skills, which we all do, the universe doesn't have another breath for me. It doesn't. I don't trust anybody or anything. And if I got oxygen now, nobody's getting it, and I'm done. And maybe I'll give you a little bit if you first give me and show me the other oxygen. Maybe. You know, put it in an Esquire's account, put the oxygen in a third person's account. And if I could see it and you could send me the deed by WhatsApp by 1 o'clock, maybe I'll release the oxygen, maybe. If it's notarized, of course, by a notary republic who doesn't live in Monsey. You Teves? Breathing is very vulnerable. It's giving up everything every moment. And what are you're giving up life. You're giving up neshama. But that's the only way to live. So in breathing, we all know this. Nobody plays games. Because if for a moment you try to control your breath, good luck. You're not going to be here anymore, chas v'shalom. So we know that you have to give it up. That's what Ratzoi in Avodas Hashem, that's what Ratzoi is. So to live every moment means Ratzoi. And that's where the soul gets relaxed. Shuv is much harder for than Ratzoi. We think Shuv is, I own life. It's me. It's much harder. The soul is much happier being Ein Sof than it is being finite. Finiteness is a shlichus. It's not identity. Ratzoi is your identity. Shuv is your mission. And that's why by the Alter Rebbe in Chassidus Chabad, Shoiv is deeper than Ratzoi. Because Ratzoi is what your soul wants and Shuv is what God wants. It's Mesiras Nefesh. Ratzoi is Mesiras Nefesh, which is natural. You give it up. It's Kloisa Nefesh. And Shoiv is Mesiras Nefesh, which means you surrender your soul to the mission. In the real life, Shoiv is harder. Why? Because it's going away from the Ein Sof, so to speak. It's coming back. It's taking the breath in. But that's the whole kavanah. You should live. If we just give up our breath, that's Olam Haba. You stay Ratzai. So Shoiv is coming back. Shoiv is, you gave up your breath, now take a new one. I just gave it up. Yeah, I know, but take a new one. But give it up again. Give it up again. You have to trust that you're getting it. Yes. And trust that you'll have it and you're going to give it up again.
It's like in a game. You can get another way.
Huh?
It's like in a game. You can get another way. It's not a problem.
And if you live with your breathing, the rhythm of breath is the rhythm of life. That's where a normal, serene, happy life comes in. That's what it means. Living is a form of breathing. That's what all it is. In other words, really, what is life? Life is nothing but the breath I'm experiencing at this moment. There's no other definition for life. Any other definition for life is a mind game. Yeah, distraction. Now you'll tell me, what are you talking about? Nobody's paying my bills because I'm breathing. Okay, thank you. You could sit here and give a share about breathing and it's all very nice. That's life. No, I got to go work and somebody got to pay my mortgage and it's not from breathing. Somehow the mortgage company, if I write to them, I'm sending you my breath for the mortgage. And you can all breathe into the envelope and give up your need for money. Somehow the telephone company or the mortgage company didn't learn the mimer. I guess Mashiach is when everybody will learn the mimer and experience it, and then we'll all be good. Mala ha'aretz deyes Hashem kamayim liyam echasem. What does it mean, Mala ha'aretz deyes Hashem? Everybody will start breathing. So you say everybody is breathing. Everybody will start breathing consciously. The experience of breathing is really the experience of life. When I synchronize my life with my breath, that's called living. When I create dissonance between my breath and my life, that's dissonance, that's a split. They were short of breath. They couldn't hear Moshe. Moshe had Absuras HaGeula. Moshe came with redemptive consciousness. But mikaitzer ruach. So Rashi says, a person who's working hard, you're just trying to control breath. You're trying to get another breath. You're fighting for every breath. It's not a judgment. It's a description of what gullus looks like. It's a description of what trauma looks like. You're just fighting for another breath. I don't trust the next breath. I can't. All I can be is in survival mode, and the question is, am I going to win or you're going to win at every moment? That's the question. Who's going to be the winner? You walk into the room, there's a heightened hypervigilance. Who's going to win, me or you? The heartbeat that comes from surrender and relaxation is the heartbeat of bliss and redemption. But it requires tremendous amount of surrender. And you could see it. When you go into the frequency of surrender into your body with breathing, and you're really present there, there's a moment of joy that comes in before the mind hijacks it and says, well, you're a lazy couch potato. What are you doing now? You have nothing to do with your life. Presence is one of the hardest things in life. Maybe it's the hardest thing in life. Because presence actually means going into your breath. Presence means that you don't own anything. And therefore every moment is vulnerable. Just breathe. Just breathe. Conscious breathing is conscious presence of life. That's why it's every moment. That's what life is. Now people think, so what do we, so does it so we stop everything and we just breathe? First of all, it's not a bad idea. Number one. Just, buy a lottery ticket so that could be dealt with and just breathe. But it's really much deeper than that. Actually, people who live this way are more creative. They're not less creative. with their breath, with this rhythm. Because when the shoiv follows the ratzoi, it's a creative shoiv. It's because it's a shoiv that's tuned into creator, creative. Creative is from the word creator. Creativity is tuned into the creator. When your oxygen is inhaled, which means you're bringing back the energy into you, you're integrating, you're validating your life, but it came from the ratzoi, and therefore a moment later you're going to give it up. That moment is a moment of creativity rather than a moment where you cut off your creativity. The more you know how to surrender, the more your creativity becomes a channel for infinity rather than a way of validating your frail and insecure ego that knows it doesn't really exist. You understand the difference? Creativity that is here to validate my poor, insecure, frail ego is going to be as creative as the desperation of my ego. Creativity that is born from surrender is going to be creativity that is authentic and divine. I didn't say that, by the way. I'm just for the record. I mean, I know I said it, but I didn't say it. That was very funny. I didn't say it and you didn't hear it. What I mean is I didn't plan saying it and I didn't concoct the words. It just came through. That's what I mean. But it's so true. It's so true. And it's one of the hardest things in life. It's one of the hardest things in life. Because the animal consciousness, which is based on klipa, doesn't like this. Not because it's bad. It's because it's in a survival mode. It doesn't trust. And I get it. There's a reason it doesn't trust. There's a reason. And the more it reads the news, the less it trusts. The less it trusts. And the moment we go into the mind, and so why did this happen? So why did that happen? Good questions. I don't know. Ilu Yadaita V'Yisav. If I would, Rabbi Yosef Alba says, if I knew him, I would be him. Yeah, what was he saying? Like, if you want to know him, I don't have a problem, but just be him. Are you ready? You want to be God? You could. Just surrender. You want to know him? No problem. But to know him, you got to be him. You want to do that? No, you don't want to do that. You want to eat pizza and know him. Well, it doesn't work that way. Eating pizza doesn't make you infinite. Okay? You want to eat pizza? Eat pizza. You want to know him. Yeah? They said, I think, from one of the Rosh Hashivas, they said from the Satmar Rebbe, Heintige Bachrim, they willen lernen Shas in ein Nacht, und jene Nacht willen sie schlafen euch. Today's Bachrim, they want to learn Shas in one night, but that night they want to have a 7-hour sleep too. It's called quantum mechanics. It used to be you want to learn through Shas, you got to spend some time, and you got to work. No, he wants one night, like the Serenity Prayer in Manhattan. God, give me patience and give it to me now. I want patience now. Right now I want patience. It's the New York Serenity Prayer. Huh? Yeah. Why did I get into this? Learning Shas in one night, I forgot. What would That's what happens when you stop breathing. Your ADD, your ADHD on yourself. Was hat man geredet? Anybody is not ADHD in this class? I'm not asking you.
I like quantum mechanics parts, but I'm quiet.
Creativity, yeah. So that's really what it is. So the shoiv can be a trap. The ratzah, the ADHD. It's fine. The shoiv can be a trap. The bigger secret is that ratzah can also be a trap. Ratzah is a spiritual trap. Shoiv is a materialistic trap. Yeah. Eastern religions could be, yeah. And in each person's life, what that means is what we spoke before, I'm searching, I'm running, and it's an amazing thing, you're not content, you're searching, you're looking for awareness in this, but I'm not ready for the shoiv. Ratzah is identity, shoiv is the mission. That's why Ratzah is always more relaxing.
So Easterns don't have shoiv?
the focus of Shaiv, the focus of come down from the mountain. Like in the real Eastern disciplines of meditation, you could do it for 40, 50 years, 9 hours a day. And I know people meditating 12 hours a day. And it's something, just not for Jews, not talking 12 hours straight is already an Inyan of Yemei Mashiach, no question. It's not bad, Somebody once asked Elie Wiesel if Judaism has a tradition of silence. Because he says wherever he sees Jews, they don't stop yapping. He says, is there any tradition of silence? So Elie Wiesel says, yes, but we don't talk about it. So we so stop talking about silence that we don't even know that there's a tradition of silence in Judaism. Yap, and I don't know if I should be the one talking about talking, but you get the point. The moment our words exceed our silence, the words are usually worthless. The moment there's more shuv than ratzoi, the shuv is worthless. It's detachment, it's not shuv. Shuv is always commensurate with ratzoi. That's why, especially people, real leaders in Jewish history, they had to spend, the Rebbe once told somebody, he said, a emes mashpia, who says something to the people, whatever he's asking from the people, he has to first implement within himself double that amount. You understand? Moshe Rabbeinu, before he opens his mouth, he says, Lo yish dvarim anaychi. If you're not spending more time with yourself in silence, the shoiv is going to be compromised. It's not going to be real, because it's going to be disconnected. Because you became a figure. You're a figurehead. You're not a channel. The moment you're a figurehead, what they call in America a celebrity, and not a channel, you're dead, and everybody else around you is dead, because you're giving them the energy. Right? That's one of the greatest challenges in our generation, when people they cling to figureheads because they want inspiration. Figurehead is not a worked out person through and through, that he's a channel rather than a celebrity. All the people are contaminated involuntarily, but they're contaminated, and they get very disappointed. I mean, how much betrayal do people feel as a result? This doesn't mean that teachers are not allowed to make mistakes. People are fallible; they're flawed people. But it means that they're authentic with their mistakes. They don't turn their mistakes into avodah zarah. They own up to it. Right? David and Shaul. The Gemara said David and Shaul. David said Chatasi on the level of David, but he said Chatasi l'Hashem. So that's always the key. What does it mean in Isis of Chassidus? Whenever you detach the shuv from the ratzah, it's very dangerous. Whenever you own the oxygen that God gave you, instead of giving it back, that very moment later, you just became an idolatry. You just became idolatry. You became a getchka. It's not your oxygen. It was never your oxygen. Breathe. Just breathe. And you'll see people don't like this, because when you breathe, you can't think so much. And we love thinking. When you breathe. But that's what all life is. Now imagine even your thinking is like breathing. Even thinking is ratzei v'shaif. That's why when you overthink something and you try to figure it out and control it, no, give it up. It's being in a flow. Adalayada, yeah. Adalayada is a form of ratzei, but then there's shaiv. So if there was only ratzei, you just exhale and that's it. Give away your breath and that's it. Klois hanefesh means ratzei. Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu did their last breath and that was it. We're done. The Ohr Chaim writes in Parshas Vayechi that Nadav and Avihu wanted to kiss God, and exactly what they did. What's a kiss of God? The Ohr Chaim says, "Le'nimnu." He uses the word neshikus, krivus. Yeah, neshika. What's a neshika? A real neshika is the breath. My breath meets your breath. Is dapkus rucha berucha yishakeni min neshikais piyu. Rashi says a real kiss is peh el peh, not on the hands. The Sfardim like to kiss on the hands. Rashi says, Pel peh kechasen v'kala. Beginning of Shir Shirim. Like a chasen and a kala, a husband and a wife. Pel peh, what's mouth to mouth? The ruach is dapkus rucha beruch. In Zohar it says, your ruach meets my ruach. What does that mean? It means spiritually, your exhale meets God's inhale. And that's what happened to Nadav and Avihu. Whenever your exhale meets God's inhale, you call it done, but they called it sublimated. They didn't call it done.
Why couldn't they hold their breath?
Why couldn't they hold? They were done holding their breath.
So they lost their whole breath.
Yeah. Spiritually, in other words, they
Why do they?
well, hopefully, yeah, they don't choke each other. If they do, they end up. Yeah, you're right. They kill each other.
Why here do they keep their breath?
That's what they wanted.
They wanted. They weren't interested in shuv. That's why it's called a sin. I mean, it's a sin. It's a beautiful. It's a pretty holy sin. Ratzei without shuv. But it's interesting. It says in Medrash they died because suya yain. They went and drunk. It also says because they didn't get married. It also says they didn't want to have children. It also says they went in without levushim of big day kohun. It also says they went into kodesh hakadoshim. Hayru alacha b'fnei Moshe Rabba. There's like 10 different reasons. Poor Nadav and Avihu. The Torah says they did Eish Zar and something. Gemara and Medrash like 10 sins. What do you want from them? So the Rebbe once said it's all the same. It's all ratzei without shayv. They don't want to get married? Of course. They didn't want shayv. Marriage is the biggest shayv. Right? It's like your wife. You had to go to a shir. Somebody take out the garbage in this place. Yeah. Torah mitzvah shayv. They didn't want levushim. What's levushim? Levushim are garments. It's shayv. Who needs levushim? I want to be naked like before the Eitz Hadas. I don't need levushim. Levushim is not only physical garments. It's the ability to be dressed up. It's a form of camouflage. I don't want to be camouflaged. I'm done with being camouflaged. Like, you don't like me, jump into the river. It's pure energy. They didn't want to have children. They got drunk. What's suya yayin? Yayin is rotzei. What's drunk? Drunk means you lose your self-consciousness. Great. That's amazing. They didn't have the humility to Moshe. All these things. Why? They were brilliant. They were spiritual giants. It was all Ratzi without. All the sins, it's one Akudah. They went into Kodesh HaKadoshim, Ratzi without Shayv. The Kohen Gadol, Yom Kippur, went into Kodesh HaKadoshim only once a year. Because usually you need Ratzi and Shayv. They wanted Ratzi without Shayv, and that was a sin. The reason it's a sin is because the Sava Kadosh Baruch Hu liyas leidira b'tachtoinim. And tachtoinim means you have to come back. You have to inhale, not just exhale. I don't want to inhale. That's why inhale is work. Avoida. Let it go. Now inhale is beautiful as long as you exhale right away. In other words, there's no problem. Dira b'tachtoinim is amazing. It's also blissful as long as you don't feel you need to control it. You can let go, you can surrender. You're there on a mission. When you're there on a mission, rather than you owning it as a destination that belongs to you, you know how to give it up. It's beautiful and it's become part of a rhythm. Always room for the new. If you don't make room for the new, you're stuck. You're cutting off the wires of oxygen. You're cutting off the wires of oxygen spiritually. The person can't live. I'm not in flow. You're not in flow. It's always a question. Am I in flow or am I not in flow? The breath is the reminder. Koil neshama. That's koil neshama. You need the whole neshama. What's the whole neshama? Ratzei and shayv. Don't split the neshama. Koil neshama, the Alter Rebbe says. The ganze neshama, the whole neshama, ratzei and shayv. Don't split it. So every time I'm breathing, when I'm exhaling, essentially, I'm giving up my life force to the source. I'm giving it back. It's yours. I know it's yours. Right? Chana named her son Shmuel from the word Shaul. Me Hashem she'iltiv. Always know you're borrowed. This was a borrowed moment of oxygen. Thank you. Here. I never owned it. I'm a chaya. It's beautiful. You give it up. You just give it all up. You don't own your wife. You don't own your kids. Believe it or not, you don't own it. You don't even own yourself. I'm a chaya. It's a mechaya when you don't own anything. The bank owns it. If you have to own a house, if you have to own all the property on Fifth Avenue, gesund to hate. Maybe it's part of your Dira B'Tachtoinim, but it's part of Dira B'Tachtoinim. Don't turn it into an Avodah Zarah. Verstehst? And this is a constant, it's the rhythm. And it's constantly being in that space. Now we often get out of that space, right? You get me angry, you trigger me, I'm jealous, I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious. That means go, and you'll see your breath will right away change. And it's unbelievable that Pashut scientifically, one of the most effective and powerful ways to regulate your nervous system is breathing. Conscious breathing. Why? You're nervous about something. What? Breathing. Thank you. How is that going to help? The guy just made a comment. He's obnoxious. Your teenager is obnoxious and rude. Your husband is obnoxious and rude, or so you think he is. We're not discussing now the reality. We're just discussing the perception. How is breathing going to help? What's going to help? It's going to change your nature? Breathing is not going to change anybody's nature. Breathing is going to align you with yourself. Breathing is going to change you, that to help you be who you are. Meaning, when the nervous system is regulated, what does it mean when the nervous system is regulated? Then you could trust. You can be in a vulnerable space. You get back your power. Why do you get back your power? Because you're aligned with the source of all power. The moment you're aligned with the source of all power, you could trust. You can be vulnerable. You could surrender. And now you're in a different space. You're more in flow. Now today, you might do this and it's not going to work. You're going to get stressed. You're going to start breathing and you're like, yeah, sure. And you're going to get more agitated because it's not working. Because this is a process. We all need to learn this. It's not, you don't snap your finger, you breathe. It's not magic tricks. It's not another trick. It's not another lollipop. You know, take another rugula and you'll be happy. It's an internal mechanism and process of understanding the different, processes that happen in our body when we're anxious. And learning how to navigate them, because learning how they develop, what's causing them, and therefore what's the best and most effective way of responding to them without suppressing them. But by literally appreciating what they are, surrendering to them, breathing them out, and then being more in alignment. But it's not an avodah where you snap your fingers, some magic. It's a real process. It's a constant process of avodah. And in other words, it's not only a process of ratzi, it's also a process of shuv. The process of shuv means appreciating all the parts that can get so easily disconnected. That's part of shuv. Shuv means you're going into a space where it's so easy to become disconnected. That's what shuv means. That's what dira b'tachtoinim means. You're going to a place of separateness where you're going to need to learn to trust, where you're going to need to learn to surrender. So if it's hard to do it, it just means you're doing shuv. Of course it's hard. And that's why so many people don't want shayv, because it's hard. They want ratzah. They want to run from one thing to another thing to another thing. Just give me another psychedelic trip. And I get it. From Monday to Monday, because I also have that craving. Let's get high again, and we'll forget our ego, and it's going to be amazing, You lose your self-consciousness, and you're happy, and you're dancing, and even if you're crying, but you're crying with more awareness, and with more depth, and with more presence. I told you once, somebody said the definition of consciousness is the annoying time between naps. Right? Who wants the annoying time between naps? Let's take one long nap, and that's it. But it's all in shayv, because shayv is going into the place where it's so easy to get detached. Or in English, it's so easy to get triggered. It's where all of our insecurities come up, and some are not insecurities, some are real stuff. People have real pain. It's not insecurities necessarily. You're dealing with some heavy, heavy stuff. Right? Shayv doesn't just mean you're coming back to a world of illusions and delusions where you decided, somebody once told somebody, somebody once said as follows: just because I'm paranoid, that doesn't mean the world is not out to get me. I'm paranoid, but the world is still out to get me, right? Talk about paranoia. Just because some people are dealing with insecurity, or many of us, doesn't mean that nobody's out to get you. Or I should put it differently. It doesn't mean you're not dealing with some serious challenges. Shoiv doesn't mean it's a game, it's fake. It's not fake, it's a real challenge. Haneshama Yeredes L'toich HaGuf is an experience of detachment that is painful. It's not a joke. Shoiv is serious. Inhaling is serious. And once I inhale, to exhale is not so simple. Because you think if you're not going to hold on to it, you're not going to be left with nothing. It's a very big nisayon. Because you have to pay tribute to the pain of synthesizing Ratzei and Shoiv. Or to put it in simple English, there's a part of you that is not yet ready to hear this mimer. Accept that. You just have to realize that. There's a part of you that's not yet ready to hear this mimer, and that's part of being Shoiv. Being Shoiv is going to a place where there is a lot of fear and a lot of pain, and not a lot of pain, a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and a lot of insecurity and a lot of betrayal and an inability to trust. And that's called Shoiv. That's where you're going to. Right, it's you hear this, okay, let me just start breathing in, out, right? You come home, you get a text from somebody in your family and like you're freaking out and like, okay, you could take your Ratzei and Shoiv and throw it into the Hudson. Oh, Ratzei, there's no Shoiv, okay, there's crazy people around me. Like, what happens to all of it? It's not working. So you get it. So what do people do? So either they just go completely into Shoiv, which is like, they despair, cynicism. Let's just go back to the computer and watch another few clips. Douglas Murray or whatever you're watching these days.
You can't make it work. You have to let it work.
Very good. Zog's git. Or other people go into like these, these spiritual places because the integration is the real work. You can't make it work. You have to let it work. So that itself requires surrender. Part of surrender is surrendering to the truth that so many parts of us are not involved, and so many parts of us at any moment can come to the fore and delegitimize all of this. And that's part of surrender. That also you have to give up. And in a funny way, the more we give that up, and the more we surrender into that, the more it doesn't define us. That's how it is. Okay. And now, just breathe.
What was the same with between dreams, between naps?
The definition of consciousness is the annoying time between naps. Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach, we will continue Monday morning. Bli neder. Shabbos, I'm here. What time do they finish Shachris next week? I just want to know if we could start. It's still, Nate's is very late, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it'll be 8 o'clock. Huh? Oh.
Maybe the Chassan and Kala are still alive because they're more or less compatible.
Avada.
We're not compatible.
The Kedushas Levi writes, the Rebbe Baditchev writes in Shashidim, what's Pshat in Rashi? I want a kiss on my mouth, not hand to hand. Rashi says, not hand to hand. Like a Chassan and Kala. So the Baditchev says a moide de kevart. He says, when people kiss somebody on the hand, what they're saying is, I like you because of what you give me. I like your hand, you distribute cash, I like you, distribute brachas. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Yeah, I like the shirayim, I like the cash, I like the brachas. I like you because your hand. So his pe means, I'm not kissing you because of what I get from you. I like you. It's not because of what you're giving me. I like you, I want to be with you. That's what Rashi says. Yishakeni min eshikis piyuki toivim doidecha miyoyin. Your love is better than anything else. Schar mitzvah. I'm not doing it because I want your Gan Eden, because you have the vending machine and you're going to give me all the potato chips in the world, in this world and that. I don't need your potato chips. I'm not looking for that. Kedushas Levi, the Helike Baditchev.
There it is that he says there are two gerodim, one for schar.
Yeah. One is you're serving for schar. Yeah, this is the Teres of Baal Shem Tov. It's not for schar. Till the Baal Shem Tov, the focus was you serve Hashem and you get Gan Eden. Baal Shem Tov's idea was you serve Hashem and das is Gan Eden. Schar mitzvah is mitzvah. That's going to be the biggest schar. Huh? It's a geschmack of the Yiddishkeit. It's a geschmack of the Yiddishkeit. It's not if you'll have a good marriage, you're going to get $1 million in 95 years. Okay, not bad to get $1 million in 95 years. Although in 95 years, probably $1 million would be like a nickel with artificial intelligence. Huh? The relationship itself is its blessing. The relationship with Hashem is the greatest blessing. You're not going to get, what are you going to give me for that? When you give me the Leviathan and the Sheir Bar, it's all good to Zachen. We like the Leviathan and the Sheir Bar. Yeah? Especially if it's well done. Medium rare, of course, not too well done. Actually, I have a son who eats raw meat. He says that for nutrition reasons, you have to eat raw meat. So he eats raw meat. So the other day I ate raw meat. I had to experiment. It wasn't bad. Digested guns good. And he said, this is the organic way of eating. I have a son, he's an expert on nutrition. This is the organic way of eating. The foragers used to eat raw meat, not cooked. Okay. My point is, we don't care if the Leviathan is well done. But schar mitzvah is mitzvah. Anyway, that's koil neshama. You hear the Taichin koil neshama? The ganze neshama, ratzei v'shoiv. Not just the hand, the face. And soon we're going to see Tahalel Yutke, when you go into your ratzei v'shoiv, so you generate Hashem's ratzei v'shoiv. And that's Yud and Hey. A hafla de kamaymer. The next piece is even moide de kamaymer. Divrei Elokim Chayim. Ah? Okay, bli neder, but they finished davening very late now. They finished davening probably 8:05, right? Baruch Hashem, this minyan is meirich in davening. Okay, bli neder, Monday I'll be here at 8, and I hope they'll finish right then or a few minutes later, so we'll start. We could do it really in a different room, but over here they have all the technology and mices and this. I mean, I don't know, when is the Nades going back a little bit? Okay, so we'll be able to go back to 7:45, I guess, in a week or two.
You finished 8:05 from 7:21 Nades? That's very slow.
They daven, there's the Svardish Shemin, there's Birchas Koyanim. There's duchening every day. There's a lot of there's a lot. It's Sfardim know how to daven. It's nicht wie Ashkenazim. Sfardim know how to daven.
That's until the Baal Shem Tov.
They say that every mood in this person breathes differently.
Everyone?
Mood the person is.
Yes, every mood you breathe differently, right?
For example, a child, when you search for him, he holds back his breath because he doesn't want to hear. So you become used to when somebody looks for you, you're going to keep your breath. So there's a 5-minute breath work. If you just change your breathing when you're not in a good mood, the way like you're happy.
Wow. Yeah.
Like just every mood you are, the breath is different kind.
So it's so interesting that the different moods create different types of breath. So if you change the breath, you can change the mood.
So you did it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, both. You sometimes change your breath, and literally, you send a message to the nervous system that it's fine. Yeah, it's a funny thing. I'm nervous now. How is breathing going to help? The nervous system gets a message. You're fine. I'm fine, and it works. It pasha works. You know, you can argue with it, but it works.
So the right part of the heart works.
Yeah.
And my is the left.
Yeah.
The right heart you can't even feel because it's only sending to the lungs.
Right.
So when somebody it works too hard with them, and it's very because they don't even know.
A breathful day, an attuned day, an aligned day, a day of presence, a day of trust, a day of vulnerability. You know, when you live these things, when you live it out, it's a different life. It's like really not a joke. Sananda Leb.
Well, they're all said about.
If we can only let my people go. Very good. Shalach es ami. Let my people go. Let the person in you go. Let the breath go. Let it go, let it go. What do they say? Let go and let God. What do they say in the recovery? 12 steps, I think, right? Let go and let God. Nobody's in recovery here? Okay. Let go and let God. Let go and let God, right? The Kotzker Rebbe said, the Eberste, he said, Wo gefindt sich der Eberste? Where is God? So they said, everywhere. He said, Nein, wo molasta marain. He's everywhere, but you can only experience it if you let him in. So how do you let him in? You have to send away the carbon dioxide and take in the new oxygen, the new flow of life. I think I said it last Shabbos in the Shir. The Baal Shem Tov didn't go to sleep at night. I don't know if you know. If there was money in the house, he distributed all the money for tzedakah. And once he couldn't fall asleep, and he said there's money somewhere. They checked, there was money in the drawer, he gave it away for tzedakah. Now what does that mean? When you're really living in the flow, it's real. So most people, if they know there's no money in the house, they can't fall asleep. If there's money in the house, then I could fall asleep. Baal Shem Tov was the opposite. If there's money in the house, basically, you're not letting me sleep. You want me to control life. I can't sleep. It's like holding my breath. Huh? Yeah. You understand? No, it's not a din in Shulchan Aruch. You're allowed to have money in your house. You have to give Monsey, you have to give Chaimish, whatever. Obviously, you have to give tzedakah. But when somebody is in that relationship, it's very serious. Like he couldn't fall asleep. Like you're driving me crazy. Get rid of it. I don't need it. Like because he knew there's going to be oxygen tomorrow. It's disrupting the flow. The night is over. The money was given to me as a deposit to give out. Boom. Now I can sleep. Hashem was so serious. It was mamish like oxygen. Nobody goes to sleep saying, I'm going to hold my breath for the night. If you try to hold your breath for your night, you're going to die in your sleep. Right? So by him, everything was like that. The money is just another breath. So God gave you breath. Okay, beautiful. Enjoy it. Now give it up. Tomorrow, God didn't die tomorrow. Don't worry, the breath. But it's powerful. He couldn't fall asleep because there was money. It was disrupting me. You're disrupting me. You're forcing me to detach from life. That you can't sleep that way. It's not menuchas hanefesh. It's just that it's completely living with the moment, completely living in presence, completely living in flow, completely living with the rhythm of breath. And it's not because he was naive and he thought money is meaningless. The Baal Shem Tov was a leader. He knew very well what money is, what people need. You know, some people, they live in the malachim. They just eat a morsel of bread. They're fine. We're not talking about that. That's not the chassidus. That's precious. It's a gewaltige madrege. People who are prushim, they don't need anything. You know, they eat a little hard piece of bread. That's not what we're talking about. That's an avodah. There's people who are prushim. They're completely ascetic, and it's fine. You know, ashrei chelkom. It's a different thing. Baal Shem Tov was the opposite. Baal Shem Tov was present. It's a different vart. This is a vart of Rotzi V'shoiv. It's real integration. It's not because you're detached so you don't care. You're not detached. You're very attached. Verstehst? I once heard from the Rebbe a Meiser. He said it at a Fabrengen. The Lubavitcher Rebbe said it at a Fabrengen. I'll never forget. It's a geschmack, he said. He said the Baal Shem Tov once needed money. And the Rebbe wouldn't say a lot of stories in the Sichos. Once in a while he would say a Meiser, but every Meiser was like very powerful. He didn't say a lot of stories. Very rarely he would say. He wasn't like that type of, very rarely, but when you say a story, it was as they say, to the point. So he said the Baal Shem Tov once needed money for something, for a tachlis, for a goal. So there was a Jew who he thought had money. So he went over, I remember the Rebbe say, he went over to the person's door, he banged on the person's door a few times, and he walked away. A few minutes later, the guy ran out to look, and he saw somebody's walking, so he chased. He said, the Baal Shem Tov, and he said, what do you need? So the Baal Shem Tov told him, so he gave him. So they asked the Baal Shem Tov, I don't understand. You needed his money, so you went to the door. So when you knock on the door, you wait till the person opens. Why did you leave? What was supposed to happen? So this is what he said. He said, God blesses you. God will bless you in what you do. From here we learn that you need to do something. He will bless you in what you do. Right? So the money doesn't just come down from the ceiling, from like a manna from heaven. That was happening in the midbar. You need to make a keli. Okay. But who's giving you the money? God is giving you the money. Elamai, Hashem said, you need to make a keli. So Mela, I had to make a keli. What was my keli? Knocking on the door. What happens after that? If God wants me to have the money, I'll have the money. You understand? Why is that so important? It's very, very deep. It's deep. Because when I'm knocking on the door and waiting, really, I'm making a keli. And I'm not saying that when you knock on people's door, you should run away like the Baal Shem Tov. My point is, it's important for him to understand. He was so in touch with the flow that he never ever attributed any part of it to a human being's control. Any part of it. You want me to live in nature and knock on the door, I have no problem. I will. I have to make a keli. But he was so not disconnected. It was so, Hashem is so real, Einoid Mulvadoi, that's it. I'm going to make a keli. We're rather than, well, what's going to happen? But what? Am I crazy? I'm going to walk away? Those thoughts are already thoughts that are coming from a little concealment. Now, we all live that way. We knock on the door and we wait. But the point is, right, the Baal Shem Tov, his consciousness, he was so aligned every moment, like he gave away the money at night. It's the same Nakuda. Like Hashem just wants me to make, so I'm going to make a keli. But the money is not coming from anybody. They're not deciding it. They're not controlling it. They're not manipulating it. Me being like this, me being skinnier or fatter, my tie, like very nice, not nice. All this is just, it's all because I'm making a keli b'derech hateva. That's it. It's a channel. When you really believe this, you have menuchas hanefesh. If you don't believe it, you don't have menuchas hanefesh. That's why nobody's rushing to their jobs. They're making a keli, just save money.
Mom, take the badge from me. I cannot use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. Feels like I'm knocking at the heaven's door. Plagiarizing.
Yeah. In other words, what I liked when the Rebbe explained, he didn't explain it as a miracle. Mostly, the Baal Shem Tov, he does miracles, he has kvitzas aderech. Me, it takes to go to Lakewood 2 hours, and he can go to Lakewood, with a horse in 5 minutes. That's not the Vart. It is a bigger miracle. The biggest miracle, somebody once wrote, the biggest miracle of the Baal Shem Tov, the miracles happened, it didn't happen. Eliezer Steinman once wrote, he was a leftist, he wrote, the biggest miracle of the Baal Shem Tov was the Baal Shem Tov. You understand? That's bigger than all the miracles. Kvitzas haderech, this, gewaldig. It happened, it didn't happen. He said, I'm all missing the point. Bigger than all the miracles was the person himself. He was the biggest miracle. This story is bigger than a miracle. He was the miracle. To live with this consciousness, that's the biggest miracle. The story is not about a Baal Shem Tov miracle. And that's really the truth of every miracle. Every miracle is essentially when you're tuning in to the consciousness that the world is divine energy. There's a maimer from the Alter Rebbe that Kriyas Yam Suf happened because at the sea, the Jews, when they looked at the sea, they knew that the only reason the sea is not dry land is because of the divine energy. The moment you see that, it's not an obstacle. Misha Amar L'Shemen V'Yadlik, Yom L'Chemetz V'Yadlik, because then you can go back to the source, and in the source.
The kvitzas haderech masters are the same idea. For me, it takes 2 hours to get to Lakewood. For them, they didn't. It's the only way we can explain it.
Today that we know in physics that the observer affects reality, Max Planck said, we used to think that matter is a derivative. We used to think that consciousness is a derivative of matter. Today we know that matter is a derivative of consciousness. Max Planck, the father of theoretical physics, quantum mechanics, one of the big guys. He won the Nobel Prize. We used to think consciousness is a derivative. There is a Metzius, and therefore I have consciousness. I'm aware that this is a tissue. It's the other way around. Matter is a derivative of consciousness. The only reason there's matter is because my consciousness says there's matter. If I'm in a different frequency of consciousness, the world is a different world, because the world exists on many planes. That's what we always learn. There's Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Asiya. And Asiya itself, there's billions of levels. There's Asiya Ruchnis, Asiya Gashmis, right? There's pre-microscope, there's after-microscope, there's what type of microscope. It's deeper, deeper, deeper. What you see is literally what you get, and today in quantum physics, it's what you create. What you see is also what you create. It's much deeper than that. But you can't. It's not a joke. This. It's a real thing. When you're in a different plane of reality, the reality is taka different. You know, Einstein's idea of space and time curving. This idea that space and time can curve, and the fact that, you know, time changes. Literally, time can change depending on the speed of things. It's literally a different time. Or no time. Yeah.
In the middle of the black hole, where there's infinite density, there's no time.
Yeah, where there's infinite density, right. So there's no time. So that's the idea.
You can be there, not be there, and forever.
Huh?
You can be there, if you can be there, it's forever. So you just
With really great people, the greatest miracle about them is no miracle that you're going to see. It's the person. That's going to be the biggest miracle. You won't see a bigger miracle than that. Don't talk about the eggs, talk about the chicken. The eggs are gewaldig, but the biggest miracle of an egg is the chicken, not the egg. The chicken makes an egg every day. That's the miracle. Verstehst?
This is something that you can take. You can catch it right away.
Yeah, I mean, kvitzes haderech, I don't know, but at least a certain dimension of it. A certain dimension of it, yeah. Hatzlocha. Don't forget to breathe today. Don't forget to breathe. Huh?